Welcome to the Cybersecurity Matters Podcast. Your hosts today are me, Matt Rose, and Harry Baldwin, two members of the cybersecurity team at Nuco. And we're delighted today to be joined by a real entrepreneur, Rune Knudsen, co-founder and CEO of Moxso. Moxso is a Copenhagen-based cybersecurity company, revolutionising how organisations approach human-layer security. Since co-founding Moxso in 2021, Rune has led the company's vision to make cybersecurity effortless, efficient, and integrated, empowering businesses to protect themselves proactively through automation, simplicity, and behavioural intelligence. Under his leadership, Moxso has become one of Denmark's fastest growing cybersecurity startups, securing seed funding in August of this year and scaling across Europe and enhancing its AI-driven adaptive security awareness platform. Welcome to the show, Rune.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Today, we'll be talking all things you, people, and the cyber industry. But to get us started, we always love to ask people, how did you first get into the industry?
Yeah, so cybersecurity industry or...
Yeah, the cybersecurity industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a great CEO or CTO and co-founder who's extremely interested in cybersecurity. I don't come from a cybersecurity background at all. So we were sitting down, thinking about what kind of business to make. And he was like, look into the cybersecurity business, Rune. And I was like, okay. And then, just a mind explosion when you start figuring out what's going on in the cybersecurity world. And when you start scratching the surface, then digging a little deeper, and you just go down the rabbit hole, and there's just more and more things to discover. So for me, it was, just mind blowing how little I knew of an industry that was, has such a big impact all around the globe. So that's kind of how I got into it, is just like, pure, interest, and yeah.
Fantastic. And talking about your own kind of personal development in your career, you've mentioned that there are leaders that have an influence in your journey to becoming a CEO. But is there one aspect or one thing that you would say has influenced your journey to this point?
I think, I was fortunate enough to grow up in an environment with a lot of entrepreneurs around me, not like big tech entrepreneurs, but everything from, building factories to consulting and just good sound businesses. So I think that's always been inspiring to me to see people work with something they're truly passionate about. And you can, when people talk about their business, when it's their own, it's just different, mind and feel you get from those kind of people. I think that's always been inspiring to me. And actually a funny story, Mikkel, my co-founder, and I started our first business when we were 15 years old, starting to collect offers on alcoholic beverages, and putting on a website for all our friends to figure out where to buy the cheapest alcohol. We didn't really find a way to capitalize on it, but it was a start. But yeah, it was a fun time. I think for me, it's just always been something super interested in. So yeah, I think that just the environment I've been in has been the biggest inspiration in that sense.
Really interesting to hear, from such an early age. Would you say that entrepreneurship's always been ingrained in your kind of approach then?
I would like to say so, but also I went the very secure way of getting a uni degree, going into consultant, and kind of needed a push as well to get back into entrepreneurship. So that was during COVID. And I think that's also the hard part about getting into entrepreneurship. Are you ready to leave your old job, the steady income, and take a couple of years where you have little to no income? So I think it's always been something I've been passionate about, something I've looked up to people that's actually doing it. So it's also always been something I've been drawn to as an individual, I would say.
And you mentioned, you're not conventionally from that cybersecurity background, but when entering such a fast-paced industry, has your own personal approach and also Moxso's approach to the cyber industry changed since founding the business?
I think a ton of things have changed, right? I think that that's also why I love the cybersecurity industry. I mean, knowledge you had 3 years ago is almost obsolete already, right? So it's very easy to become an expert if you're just very interested. But I think like in the introduction of AI has just, changed everything. Like threats are evolving all the time. How we can create product, how we can build our own business is also changing at the same time. So I think like everything has basically changed since we started. But at the same time, like the core values are still the same. But how we're getting there is changing for sure.
And across your career so far, you must intersect with lots of fantastic entrepreneurs themselves. I mean, has there been any piece of advice from a colleague or somebody else in the industry that's really stuck with you throughout your journey?
I think for me, like right now, it's building. Building most of that's what I'm really interested in. So I think the best advice I've gotten so far is take pride in others' success, because as a CEO you kind of need to step away and let others thrive. And as an individual, you're still you want that praise, you want to feel good about yourself, and you kind of need to let that go and leave it to the rest of the company, and then finding pride in just how your company is growing. I think that transition is something that has helped me the most as an individual. It just helped me so much letting go of things. And you can, as a CEO, if you can really easily become the bottleneck, right? If you have a hard time letting go. So definitely the advice I still believe is the best one I got so far.
Yeah, I can imagine, in your position as CEO, there certainly is a lot to be proud of, but it also is a bit of a personal journey as well. I can imagine from being there right from the start to now kind of in this position where you're looking to scale. What would you say have been the biggest challenges setting up Moxso from a personal standpoint or from the business standpoint? And how is that, impacting your view of the future now?
I think just to be completely honest, the hardest part in the beginning is just your financials, right? Because they are just extremely bad. And you can just see your savings account is just dropping by the month. And that is actually something that's just really, really hard to cope with. And I think also in the beginning, when you start a company, like the first 1 or 2 years, if you don't succeed, those 2 years, so they don't give you any credit anywhere else. Only if start building another company, you could take those experiences. So it's also like I could feel there was something like I really need to get to this, milestone where I felt like now I've kind of crossed over where I can be proud of what I've done. So like when you were only like 1 or 2 people building something, if you don't succeed in that, like nobody will care about it. Like you can't really go to a job interview and say, well, I built this. Yeah, it was shit, right? But so that I think like the financial part of that, I think right now it's also just like you have to adapt so quickly because right now we're growing, we've grown 300% in employee count the last 3 months. And then your role changes drastically, right? So suddenly it's just other problems you need to take care of. You need to get out of operations as fast as possible. So it's like the ever-changing role, but it's also the fun part about it. It's just that's what I enjoy at least. That and like looking 1 or 2 months ahead, I have some sort of an idea what I want to do, but the likelihood of it's actually that I'm doing is not that high.
Yeah, I mean, it must be an evolving time for you and Moxso right now. But I think you've segued quite nicely into a section of the podcast where we like to talk about often the most important part of the industry, which is its people and talent within the industry. I mean, when it comes to talent, often in the cybersecurity, it evolves as much as the technology itself. I mean, how has your approach to recruiting the best talent at Moxso changed since you've had this influx of growth?
When you start out, two founders need to find your first hires. You cannot pick and choose. That's one thing that's for sure, right? Who want to join two guys sitting in front of a computer, right? So in the beginning, it's pretty much finding the diamond in the rough. So who do you believe can someone get you there? You cannot really know for certain, right? So I think that's like one of the biggest changes now since we kind of got the funding, right? Because now we are a company that can attract talent. Talent actually comes to us. So it's a little bit more of a pick and choose. Instead of, having one or two candidates to choose between, then you have maybe 500 candidates to choose between, right? So that's a huge difference. And of course, our approach has changed a lot. Right now, we are also on a VC journey. So that's one of the things I'm looking mostly for in people. Like, are you ready to that kind of growth? Because we as a company need to grow at an extreme pace, and you as an individual, you kind of need to be able to adapt to that, because otherwise, like, the next phase of the company, you'll not really be able to be a part of the company in some sense. So it's really something I'm quite open with people about. Like when you get here, you need to push yourself to the limit, because we need to push the company to the limit. I have something I always say to people when they're about to join. It's like, if you expect to do the job you do, if you could do the job you do today 6 months ago, then you haven't pushed yourself hard enough. And I think it's even true if you do, like, say 3 months, right? Because like, you need to grow at an extreme pace, and it's not for everyone, for sure, especially also because like onboarding is, of course, we have onboarding, but you also have to do a lot of self-development, because we everybody's moving so fast. And so it's like, are you a problem solver? Are you coachable? And can you actually deliver your own growth? That's something you're looking for. And that's some hard characteristics to find, I would actually say.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's also really interesting from the space, the sector in which you're sat in cybersecurity, with it being so human focused at that human layer. Would you say, in terms of your approach on that side, you're looking to empower clients with the strongest line of defense in that human-centric space? Does that kind of philosophy influence you when you look to hire and develop teams?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I don't know how many companies that do this, but we are very focused on like a bottom-up approach. So solving the problems from the bottom up. I don't know if you know the book called Empowered. It's about building product teams, right? So it's very much about, you have a problem. You don't give anyone the solution. You actually give the boots on the ground. Like, we have this problem, figure out a way to solve it. So that's kind of been our approach to, everybody needs to be a problem solver. We expect everybody to contribute as well, and to know how they contribute to our overall strategy. So I think, in some sense, like, humans are the greatest defense, and the same goes for our company. Like, the humans are also the greatest innovators. I mean, I could be just saying, like, let's just do as I think is the best, and then if I had the greatest mind in the world, then we would succeed. But I don't think I have that, and I expect my colleagues and employees to kind of innovate and be creative and know how to solve the problems they are seeing the best way.
Yeah, and I think you've referenced it a little bit already, but in your position where you're scaling so rapidly, is there a difficulty to strike the right balance between hiring for potential and growth in the future, or hiring for somebody right now who's going to make the difference right now?
Yeah, I think it's one of the, I would say, like, little sad parts. It's really, really hard to hire for potential in the stage we're in, because we need you to be able, to hit the ground running when you start here, because everybody is so busy. So I think, especially at the stage we are at right now, like, we cannot really afford to rely too much on potential, because we also need to hit our milestones in a year or so. If you only start, delivering in half a year or even longer, like, we can't really afford the time spent. So I think that's something I'm personally a little bit sad about, I would say. But it's also just how it is. But before we got funding, it was way more like finding the diamond in the rough, as I mentioned, right? So finding those guys with potential.
I think often talent mirrors where the business is at and what is needed within that journey. I think it's been very evident with Moxso that company culture also plays a massive part. I think one thing we find when startups are growing so aggressively, it's how you find the way of keeping the company's culture and values at the heart as it expands. How have you approached that?
Yeah, I think again it's a bottom-up approach, right? I rely extremely on the people who have been here for a long time. I rely on them to kind of set the standard and set the tone. This is how we work at Moxso. We've also been like very aware of building a culture where people feel like some sort of belonging, right? So from the get-go, we have been an office-first culture because I believe also when like the magic happens when you're around your colleagues, and that also just creates a stronger bond between the people, right? And I've just seen that translate very well into bringing new people on board, that you have a core group that really likes each other. Then it's way easier to, adapt to getting 10 new employees the next month and the next month and the next month. And, like looking back now, like the people who have been here for 3 months, I feel like they've been there forever. And I think that's a really good sign of like where our culture people are adapting so fast. And yeah, I mean, a core part of the culture is also to have fun, right? And enjoying the time spent together. And I think a lot of people buy into that when they join Moxso.
Absolutely. And it sounds like such an exciting project with the momentum behind the team. And I can imagine that translates into the team spirit at work. I've focused on a little bit of people, but I'm keen to turn the topic towards Moxso and the topic that matters, more about the cybersecurity industry. So I'll hand over to my colleague, Harry.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Rune, for your wonderful answers. It's really great to get a bit of an insight into what it's like being an entrepreneur in cybersecurity and your view across lots of topics. First question, when you founded Moxso, what was the original problem you set out to solve? And has that changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I said before as well, like that mind-blowing feeling I got because I knew so little about such a huge topic around the world. That actually became my main driver when we started. Like, how do we actually change that so people, are actually interested in cybersecurity? Because I really believe it's interesting, right? And so that kind of became my main driver. It still is. I think everybody should care about cybersecurity. I think we should care about it on a company level, but just as much as a personal level. So I've always been like, the company is paying you to basically get a knowledge that's also working for you in your private life. It shouldn't be a thing that you hate. I know it is for like 95% of people. And so that kind of became my main driver and something I wanted to change. It's still the main driver, but a lot have changed over the years, right? I think especially, as mentioned, like the introduction of AI has been something that just changes the way we can go there in a whole different direction. And like the possibilities right now to create trading that's way more interesting and something that people actually will adapt and like. I think the change of getting there is the path there is way easier than it has been before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And curious, just a totally sidetrack question, which I wanted to ask when Matt was asking questions about being an entrepreneur. Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Was it something that you, when you were at school, during your education, were you like, I want to have autonomy running my own business, and that's where it came from? Or was it come from a family member? Tell me a bit about that from a personal side.
I think it's like the place where I grew up. It's just something that you see quite a bit. It's not from my family per se. It's more, family friends, I would say. It's everything from like somebody building a DJ business to, building a factory to, consulting and these kinds of things. But it's always been something I've been super curious about. I think the financial independence as well has been something that, at least in the early days when I was young, something that was very motivating. I remember myself like, I'm going to earn more than my mom and dad at the age of 20. Well, that didn't happen, but it's like that was kind of the mindset when growing up. But of course, that changed a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure that will resonate with lots of people. I always have the dream of being able to look after my parents when they're older, and to be more successful than my dad. That's a classic one, isn't it? When you were a young guy growing up. But anyway, back to security. I think security awareness is a really interesting topic. Sometimes I think it's kind of been treated as a bit of a compliance checkbox, maybe a tick box exercise of, yes, our employees have done security awareness. How do you challenge that mindset when you're speaking with CISOs and business leaders? And what's your take on that kind of general thought and theme?
Yeah. Well, I think it has been a lot about compliance checking, Max. So I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think that's also why the industry is so hated, because like who likes to be a check mark in a spreadsheet, right? I think our approach has always been like, well, you spend the time training your employees. You just spend the time wrong. So like, do you want to reduce risk, or do you just want to, spend the time of something you get zero output out of, right? So I think for me, the classic example when we started was, people training, 3 hours once a year, and people just said like, clicking through whatever training material they got. And it's just such a waste of time, right? Because like you might as well spend those 3 hours throughout the year actually learning something about cybersecurity. And it's always been our approach. Like if you spend more than 5 minutes on a topic that you don't really, care that much about, you'll start looking at your phone. You'll start looking out the window. So our approach was always, like, I think it has changed now. A lot of CISOs are coming because of risk to us. But if you talk to somebody who's still like stuck in that compliance mind, it's like, you are spending the time training your employees. What about, training them in a way where you actually reduce risk at the same time? So that was kind of the initial approach. And I think that resonates quite well. And like the efficiency has always been a big part of how we go to market.
Yeah. How do you find the security awareness, the human layer of security market as a whole? Do you guys see it as one that is, because it's been around, the focus on human security is been something that people have always looked at. How do you see that market developing more generally? Is it one that's full of competitors for you guys right now, or how generally do you see it?
Well, I think you can look at the market in two sections, where what I would call like legacy players, which is basically the checkmark exercise. They're still around and still have quite a big of market share. And these guys are not tech based, right? It's a content library. Basically, they are LMS you could send out, right? Where I see a lot of also up-and-coming companies focusing on risk. How do we create a security culture? How do we also manage that risk? Because like when you do checkmark exercises, it's just like, well, we know there is a risk. What are we going to do about it? Right? And I see, like, I don't see those legacy players standing a chance for long, because like this is definitely something we see in the market, that people are very focused on risk, and it is just changed so much over the years. Just the 4 years we have been here, the talks we have, we don't have to convince as many people that this is actually a huge risk to their company as we started out doing.
Yeah, especially with AI, right? I think AI is going to impact that space massively, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think also like something that we underestimate is like when we actually make errors, it's when we are making decisions, and AI is going to enable us to take so many more decisions that we do today because we don't have to do the groundwork, right? So we'll be in way more positions to actually make an error as an individual. So we'll just, increase a lot. And then of course, all the threats coming from AI, right? With deep fakes and all these kinds of things. That's just so interesting. And threats we are not even remotely prepared to handle.
Yeah, no, interesting. Very interesting. And what do you think, in terms of if you had unlimited resources, right? You had unlimited resources, unlimited talent. What do you think? I think this is kind of looking forward. What human-centric security challenge would you want Moxso to tackle next? What kind of things do you think are not covered currently within the industry from a human security perspective?
I think there's like this huge opportunity to do the training hyper individualized. If I had unlimited resources, I would take on Synthesia and these guys creating AI generated materials, because you can actually just create training materials that's so much better than the training we have today. You can take out all the generalization. You can review it way more in like a sense of an AI coach that actually knows your weaknesses and actually trains you in what you need. So if I had unlimited resources, I would go down that road. But I'm not going to take on Synthesia right now.
Maybe it's a sneak preview into what's next at Moxso. I'm sure you can't tell it. That was going to be one question I wanted to ask. Actually, was what's next for you guys? You've had a tremendous achievement raising funding for a really exciting bit of technology. I know you probably can't tell us everything, but what's next up for you guys?
Of course, like growth is what's mostly on my mind, right? So it's expanding our technology across Europe to start out. But at the same time, keeping that momentum in developing our product, because I think we've only just, scratched the surface of AI. And this is also like really an opportunity to change the industry, to start focusing on real risk instead of just, generalized risk. So I think like we're moving from what I would call like static training to more dynamic training, where you actually, understand each human and what kind of risk they are implied to maybe click on a link, maybe fall for deep fakes. And then you can actually target training to their specific needs. And I think that's going to solve a lot of things in the industry, because, as mentioned, people hate training. And I think one of the reasons is that it's not catered for them, right? It's like, well, now I've trained passwords for the 10th time. I know my passwords, right? And if I get to a situation where, well, I know our system knows you understand your passwords, like we're not going to train you in that. We're going to find content that's right for you, that's going to upskill you. So it's going to be way more of an upskilling journey that is like a static journey where we like try to minimize risk in like a generic sort of terms.
It's really interesting, Rune. Apologies, Harry, for jumping in, but I think, when you're talking about making it so much more personalized as well, you're also combating that checkmark kind of exercise, because you're also making the material far more engaging, aren't you? And when you're able to engage someone about it, they're far more likely to probably retain that information.
Yeah, 100%. I think like when I look at an industry, I think they look at it in the completely wrong direction. Like they know that people are not engaging with their content. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to give you more content, right? Then they're trying to gamify it to give you even more content, right? And I don't see the problem lying there. It's definitely that the relevance of the content is not tailored to the human. I know for a fact that if you try to learn me something I already know, I'm not going to listen for very long. And I think that's a symptom of this industry quite a lot, especially if you look at the checkmark exercises, right? Because then you train passwords every year. You have to lock your computer every year, and like maybe you even see the same videos, right? And like I definitely understand why you don't engage with that. I wouldn't personally, and this is some of the things I believe need to change.
Very cool. Brilliant. I've got one more and then I will wrap up with the final question. You've mentioned being an entrepreneur takes a hell of a lot of hard work and dedication and focus. How do you switch off? What do you do to switch off? And what's your advice for others that are on the same journey and looking to, at least have a few minutes not thinking about their venture?
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest part. 100%. I mean, I wake up in the middle of the night and the first thing that comes to mind is Moxso, right? So basically what I need to do is just work out very intensely. So I almost can't breathe anymore. So, I go for runs, I go to spinning classes. Like if you push yourself hard enough, you can't really think about anything else that is just so tough. And so that's where I switch off. But I mean, I 100% agree with you, because this is just the hardest thing about being passionate about building a company. It's like you never switch off, and that also takes a toll on your energy when you get back home, right? So I do a lot of things to try to disconnect. Also, use meditation apps and stuff like that. Doesn't work for me, but like I'm trying a lot of things because I'm very aware, like if I don't switch off, it's gonna end up with a burnout of some sort.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, recruitment is also fairly all encompassing because it sort of never stops, and we work totally globally. So for me, I do the same. I do lots of running to switch off. So I'm big into long distance running and all the rest of it. So do what you got to do, I suppose. I
can really feel it when I get injured, for example. Like my mind is just overheating in some sense. So don't get injured, or at least find somewhere else to kind of disconnect.
Yeah, awesome, brilliant. Last question, and then we're done. I mean, I've honestly so far loved all your answers. It's been great to get a glimpse into everything. Last one is about advice. It's always the same question for every guest we have on. What one piece of advice would you give to someone entering the industry today?
Well, get hyped. I think it's an amazing industry. I think it's one of the industries where you can actually become an expert very, very fast because, knowledge just get outdated so fast. So like if you're curious, if you are, a hard worker, you can really, really get far very fast. And I think that's quite unique to this industry. And I also think because the industry is like it is, they also know that, young talent that's very, very, engaged. They're really way more adaptable compared to other industries. Like let's say you do finance, for example, it's just not the same, right? You wouldn't bring in a 20-year-old kid to take over your finances, right? I wouldn't care how old you are if you're a good, a developer, ethical hacker or something like that. I mean, come on board. We're ready to tackle whatever. But I think that's one of the fun things and why you should join the industry as well. And it's just also, it's growing so fast, right? So there's a lot of potential.
I love it. Get hyped. That's the one that's sticking. That's the one that's sticking with me. It's so much excitement in the industry. I can really feel that from you too, Matt. Unless you've got any other questions, anything else you'd like to ask, Matt?
No, that's all good from me. I think, super exciting to see what's happening at Moxso in the future, but also in the wider industry. And I've really, really enjoyed the podcast with you. Brilliant.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Thank you very much.